Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my mobile game review of Girls Frontline 2. Now, this is a game that I've been playing for at least a year. I'm not sure if I've been playing it for 2 years or not, but pretty close at this point. It's a fairly new gacha game. It's been out for, a short period of time. But I'm not a day one player or anything, but I have been playing long enough to know how I feel about the game overall. So, we're going to be discussing the music, the story presentation, the gameplay, the character building, the gacha, and the visuals. So, starting with the music, I'm going to be honest, I haven't really heard any tracks that are, I would say, bangers or anything like that. The soundtrack overall is okay. I have nothing really against the soundtrack itself. There are a lot of good piano backgrounds if you go to the actual music section where you can kind of go through different tracks. But when you're playing the game, I haven't really heard any strong boss music or anything like that. It's just basic music for the most part. So it's passable. So I say it's 7 out of 10 for the music, but it's just okay. In terms of the story, there is a lot of dialogue and very few cutscenes. Also, the dialogue is not in English, so if you're the kind of person that doesn't like to listen to Japanese or any other language, you're either going to be stuck reading or you're probably going to be skipping the story entirely. So that's kind of a bummer for, some of us English speaking players. But I will say that from what I've seen, the cutscenes are nice in terms of the story itself. But I would say there's just a whole lot of dialogue. And it's kind of the same between the main story and the events. You get a lot of dialogue, and then on occasion you get a cutscene. But it's nothing to really get too excited about. The story overall, I'd say 7 out of 10. Like I said, it's passable, but nothing to brag about. In terms of the actual gameplay, this is where the game does get better. So, in this game, there are a lot of things you can do in terms of story, which you would expect. There's a little bit of PvP, but I'll be honest, I would tell you that most people do not play this game for its PvP. They have two separate things. So, if you were to go to campaign, you go to combat simulation, you have the combat exercise where you can do 3 fights, you hit attack, and then you basically pick a team that you want to attack and go from there. And you can do this 3 times per day to get rewards. So that's the basic part of PvP, but there's also, I believe it's military simulation that's a little more challenging. And here, whenever you jump in, you're actually playing against actual strongly built teams, so you actually will probably lose a little more often. But again, PvP is nothing. I don't think this is a PvP type game. It just exists because that's just what you expect in a gacha game, but nothing to get too crazy about. Also, in terms of guilds, I have not seen any guild versus guild type stuff, so I don't believe that exists either. So it's just basic PvP. So if you're a big PvP guy, probably not for you. This game more shines on its PvE. The events that we have in this game typically have a variety of game modes you can do. They'll always have a story where you can just basically see, the character story of what's going on. Supply missions, which are mainly there to get you resources to buy things that you need. They have a challenge mode that eventually gets released about a week or two later. That's a little more difficult. And then, of course, you have a lot of little mini games you can do that are pretty fun. What I will say that if you're on PC, you're going to have a good time with the mini games. But if you're like a tablet or phone player, some of these mini games are definitely not meant for a touchpad type situation and will be a little more difficult to do. So if you're playing on mouse and keyboard, or a PC basically, these will be a lot more fun for you to enjoy. So they have a lot of little fun things you can do, and there are a variety of events that they have. Sometimes it's mostly combat. There are some times where they have like a theme where you're basically, mixing coffee. I think they had a thing like that at one time. Like we had like a cafe or whatever, and you love little like puzzles you can put together to make stuff. there's a variety of things that they do for their events. So there's usually a lot to do in the game, which is really cool. On top of that, there are other game modes as well where you can do like a boss fight, for example, where you can basically pick something and you can make multiple teams and do the best you can to deal as much damage as possible. And then you're making like teams of four, and you just do the best you can and score as much points as you can. And then, of course, if you pass, you get the next difficulty and you go on from there. So basically, you fight with your first team of four, they do as much damage as they can, and then you fight your second team, a second boss with your second team of four, do as much damage to the boss as you can. And there's all these other modes where you can do certain scenarios, which is pretty cool. The only issue I'm going to say with the gameplay is if you're the kind of person that likes to play on auto, there are certain scenarios that the AI is not going to be able to do for you. So even though most of this game is combat, there are scenarios where you may have to flip a switch to do certain things, or you may have to make everybody escape in a certain number of turns, stuff like that, which is kind of cool. But the problem is the AI is not built to do everything. So there are going to be certain things if you want to progress that you're going to have to control it manually. So if you're not the kind of person that likes to interact with the game that much, you will be stuck. I will tell you that much. Auto will not clear everything for you. So that could be a ding, just because I would say that some people like to play it on auto because they like to just build teams and let them do their thing. And if the AI can't do some of the objectives, even though they're strong enough to defend and all that stuff, it kind of takes away from the experience a little bit for some players. So, that's kind of more of a preference situation. But I will say that overall, I do like the gameplay. It's about an 8 out of 10. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff to do. There's also a guild mode I forgot to mention. Basically, your platoon. You have the resupply, where basically you just get resources. You have the essential task, where you basically just do a combat scene. And every now and then you have something called Gunsmoke Frontline, where your guild basically has to beat up a boss over and over. And the more you score, the more rewards you get. So pretty simple. But again, there's no guild versus guild. Like I said, this is not a heavy PvP kind of situation. But that's okay. Like, if you're more of a PvE player, I think you're going to enjoy this game. But again, if you're a PvP guy, you may want to find something else. But anyway, moving along, as far as character building, it's okay. I will say that with a lot of these characters, it's more about building some stuff to boost them, and then of course they all have weapons as well that you can boost too. So there are a few things you can do. The only thing that might be a little complicated is probably doing some of the attachments for the weapons. That might not be as easy as you might think, because there's a little more to it. And then there's also a neutral helix, where you're basically learning their abilities, and then once you learn their abilities, you get to basically customize your character and decide which abilities they're going to learn. They can't use all of their passives. There are certain ones you just have to pick and choose, basically. So that's something to consider. Some people may not like that because they'd rather a character be able to do everything. So that could be a potential ding. But, other than that, the building a character is pretty straightforward. There's a variety of characters, so, not a terrible thing. So overall, the character building is an 8 out of 10. It's good. Could use a little more polish, but it is good. The gacha is definitely one of the best things about this game. So with the gacha, there's an 80 soft pity and 160 hard pity. So basically, once you get to 80, you're basically at a 50-50 situation. And if you're unfortunate, then you have to do potentially another 80 pulls to guarantee the character you want. And I'm not sure if the weapons are that way as well. I don't always buy weapons for characters. I mainly collect the characters, but I will say that even though there is a 50-50. The game is extremely generous. The economy in this game is fantastic, to the point to where if you're free to play, it'll be easy for you to save up to pity a character in a few weeks, to be honest. Like if you're doing all the game modes, you should be able to easily get a character you want within about, I'd say, maybe 3 weeks, give or take a week, is about what I'd say. Now, if you're a light spender, which is what I am, I basically do the battle pass and I do like the daily gym thing on occasion. You can probably pity in 2 weeks. I could probably say that, as long as you're actively participating in events and the side game, the quests and stuff you can do. So again, really good gacha system overall. Again, it's not aggressively high. It's actually pretty low compared to most games. And like I said, they're very generous with gems and the events that they have. They give good rewards. So it's pretty easy to get a character that you want. Now, you're not going to be able to guarantee what you want every banner. It's not that generous, and it shouldn't be. But, I'd say every other banner you should be able to pull a character you want. And if a character you want doesn't come out, that's just more you get to save for later and guarantee getting the character and potentially their weapon if you want to go that far. So overall, I'd say the gacha in this game is a 9 out of 10. It's a very good gacha with a great economy. Now, the last thing I want to discuss, which is easily the best thing about this game, are the visuals. In terms of gacha games, this is what I would consider top tier. The game just looks beautiful. The character designs are great. And of course, you can also buy skins for the characters. So if you're someone that just likes to collect waifus, this is one of the best games in the market, to be perfectly honest. And when you're playing the game itself, the quality of the characters are still there. Because there are a lot of gacha games where like the character screen, when you're just looking at the character, is nice. But when you play the game, the visuals kind of fall off. This game keeps its integrity the entire time in terms of visuals. And they even recently changed it to where when it's the character's turn, you actually get to see it, the camera angle from right behind them. So you get to kind of see them moving around and what their outfits look like, things of that nature. You can kind of see all the movements they're doing quite clearly. It's not overly pixelated. Like the art design in this game is really good. And the backgrounds for the stages that you're playing in when you're actually playing the game are pretty good too, especially during events. Because in events, they'll usually add some extra stuff, like maybe certain areas will have balloons if it's a festive thing. It's all about like really interesting aesthetics, and I think they do a really good job of that. Like I can't think of a gacha game that does visuals as well as this game, which is why I'm gonna give this game. I'm gonna give the visuals a rare 10 out of 10. Like I just haven't played a gacha game in the genres that I play that comes close to being as good as this. This is where it's at visually, and of course there's a lot of eye candy as well. If you're like a gacha waifu collector, like this is definitely one of the best games on the market for that. So overall, I'm going to give this game an 8 out of 10. That's kind of what it averages out to. Do I recommend this game to players? It's difficult to recommend a game of this genre because strategy RPGs are a very niche genre. So it's difficult to, recommend this game. But in general, I do think this is a really good game with a very generous gacha system, with a great economy, fun mini games, good combat, and beautiful characters. And they're all basically females, because a lot of the games, it's a combination of male and female, whatever your preference is. In this game, it's all female, so this is definitely a game meant for men. But if you're a woman that likes looking at, female eye candy, I mean, it could be good for you too. But either way, like, it's hard to recommend to a general audience, but if you like strategy RPGs, this is definitely the best in terms of gacha games. About the only other strategy RPG that I probably played for an extensive length of time would have been Fire Emblem Heroes. The problem with Fire Emblem Heroes is just the visuals are just not what I like. Even though I think the gameplay is excellent, but I'm not really into chibi characters, and like I said, visually it just doesn't do it for me. Whereas this game, it keeps its visual integrity all throughout the game, whether you're looking at the character screen or doing combat. Like, just everything just looks beautiful no matter what you're doing in this game. So I just had to put that out there. But yeah, overall 8 out of 10. I recommend it, but it is a niche kind of genre, so I understand that not a lot of people are going to be super hype on the game. But if you like strategy RPGs and you play gacha games, 100% best game on the market to try. But it's going to be it for this one. As far as my next project for a mobile game review, it's going to be a while because all the other games I'm currently playing just released this year. And I'd like to play games for at least 6 months before I come up with an actual review, because things can change in terms of how they either do their monetization. I like to wait for the honeymoon phase to end and see how the game really is to the players before I jump in and say, oh, this game is so great, like, well, a week or two in. Like, of course it's going to be great when it's, only a week or two in, because they're going to be super generous to get players into this new game. But when the game's been out for at least 6 months, those start to actually be really into what they want the game to be. And that's when you really want to decide, okay, is this game actually generous? Is it actually a good game? Things of that nature. But yeah, it's going to be a while before I do another mobile game review, to be honest. I wouldn't expect anything until probably 2026. The only games that I'm currently going to review is going to be Etheria Restart. It's going to also be Seven Nights Rebirth. And I was going to do Shadowverse, but I'm going to be honest, the new one, I kind of quit playing a few weeks ago. I'm not going to lie. I just lost interest. Maybe I might make a video on that one day. If it's something anyone's interested in, definitely leave a comment. But if not, maybe who cares? But I do have some games on the horizon that I definitely want to do a review on. But it's going to be a while. I want to wait a few more months just to see if I notice any trends, so that I can provide a more in-depth analysis on how the game really is. But yeah, with that said, thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and we'll see you on the next episode. Later.